So, folks, we have to talk about the threat of democratic socialism rising inside the United States. It might come for you. It might come for me. It might come for any one of us. It could come for all of us.
Whoopsie.
Who can say? However, it's worth knowing. It's
okay to like to feel being used on a carnal level.
Anyway, we are diving into this very, very serious piece put forward by News Nation the other day, called Inside the Democratic Socialists of America. It's a hard-hitting News Nation special report, and I, for one, am excited to finally have the wool pulled off of everyone's eyes to see the dastardly machinations within the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. I feel like we need a there we go. That sets the proper tone. Let's get into it.
That's what Katie Pavlich is diving in tonight in her show. Hi, Katie.
Indeed, and Hassan Piker is a top surrogate for DSA, so we'll be asking our guests about his statements and much more. We have Fidel Castro's daughter on as well to respond to this news.
She knows a thing or two about what socialism actually does.
She may know a few things about what this may do in the history that we've seen it.
Fidel Castro's daughter? Oh my God, the socialists, they're converging. They're getting more powerful. Hassan, Castro's daughter, coming together. Oh no.
But interested to see what the DSA has to say as well, given that they're an older organization that has seen a resurgence in recent months, certainly at the ballot box. So we will get into all of it. Great to see you, Leland.
Have a great show, Katie.
Well, hello and welcome to Katie Pavlich Tonight. Well, we have a different kind of show planned for you tonight, one where we spend the whole hour taking a closer look at the Democratic Socialists of America, or the DSA as we have come to know it.
Anytime they talk about, anytime one of these News Nation people talks about DSA, I'm going to drop that sound bit because I think it's funny.
The DSA is a growing movement, one that seems to be gaining more traction and becoming more powerful by the day. But what exactly is it? And is it anything like socialism and communism we've seen across the world in the past century? We'll talk to its top representatives, its supporters, and people who have left the movement. We'll also talk to people who have lived under communism disguised as socialism, including the daughter of Cuban dictator Fidel Castro. We'll begin tonight with what the DSA stands for. It just rolled out a new platform last week, and it has 5 key objectives. 1.
Can I just say I love this. Establish public ownership of the largest corporations and essential industries. Oh no. Oh no. You mean the state should make sure that you have clean water instead of a private corporation that has every incentive in the universe to like make you less safe? Oh no. Provide free, quality public education from pre-K to college and cancel all student debt? Oh no! Guarantee universal healthcare at no cost? Oh my God! Enact reparations? You mean they're gonna pay people back for hundreds of years of unpaid labor? Grant amnesty for all immigrants? Oh no! Truly a nightmare Mad Max hellscape planned by these Democratic Socialists of America. Tell us more.
Government ownership of private corporations. 2, quote, free education, including college. 3, government rent control.
Can we just also just be like, quote, free education, including college? You mean like what we have right now for kindergarten through high school? Oh, you mean adding like, I don't know, like 5 years of education for anyone who wants them? Oh no, the horror. People trained in specialized fields? Oh no.
And state-run healthcare. 4, reparations for slavery. And 5, amnesty for all illegal aliens. Those are just the top 5. There are more objectives like abolishing ICE, abolishing prisons, abolishing the Supreme Court.
Wait, are the notifications not working over here? Wait a minute. I did turn it off. That's my bad. Saki Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Essential Industries sounds like an essential oils company. Fuck, that'd be a really good name for an essential oils company. God damn it, I wish I was a drop shipper. The amount of money you could make. Don't do that. Don't be a piece of shit. But Saki Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs.
Abolishing the Senate. We'll get into all of that. This is the DSA's policy vision heading into the November midterms. And more than 35 DSA-backed candidates have already won their primaries across the country.
Oh my God, they're spreading. Oh my God.
Creating an identity crisis for the Democrat Party. But this isn't a new movement in America. The DSA organization, as what we see today, was formed back in 1982 through a merger between the Anti-Vietnam War Democratic Socialist Organizing Committee and the New American Movement. And after struggling through the...
Oh no, you mean it has its roots in being on the right side of history insofar as it opposed Vietnam? One of the worst mistakes America has ever made? This DSA group is starting to sound kind of based.
Conservative victories of the 1980s, which brought about the end of the Soviet Union, DSA began a new period of growth in 2014 with Senator Bernie Sanders. Sanders brought democratic socialism and the renormalization of communism to the mainstream during his 2016 presidential run, of course. And by 2017, the DSA claimed 24,000 members. Today, that number has skyrocketed to more than 120,000 members, calling for an end to capitalism.
Give us a few more years, we'll have a couple million.
Sometimes violently, and fleecing taxpayers. Digging deeper, those members are overwhelmingly
wait a minute, I'm sorry. Wait, what?
120,000 members calling for an end to capitalism, sometimes violently, and fleecing taxpayers.
What does it mean to call for an end to capitalism, sometimes violently? And I gotta be honest, I don't recall any DSA candidate advocating for stealing taxpayer dollars.
Digging deeper, those members are overwhelmingly college educated, but not particularly well off. And recent polling shows some voters are more likely to support a Democratic Socialist candidate over a MAGA candidate endorsed by Trump, although capitalism still wins out with a majority of voters. So to make sense of it all, we are now joined by Grace Mauser, New York City DSA co-chair, and Bhaskar Sankara, author of the Socialist Manifesto and president of The Nation magazine. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me.
God, I love that they have decided, News Nation, we're gonna put one of our talking heads on in between two people who are absolutely about to wreck her. Let's go. I'm so excited.
I really appreciate you taking the time to let us know what DSA is all about for people who are curious or may not know the details. So, Bhaskar, let's start with you. Let's start with what we laid out with the DSA platform, the new platform. Of course, new taxes. We've heard about wanting a Green New Deal, passed through the legislative process.
You know, this might be unfair of me, but Bhaskar looks like the kind of guy who'd be so fucking chill at a party. He'd be in the corner petting a dog with you and like smoking a joint and like just being cool as fuck.
Those are kind of normal policy positions we've seen over the last 10 years, but abolishing the Senate and the presidency and the Supreme Court, how do you plan to eliminate?
Okay, but Jack, hot woman and grungy looking fella is peak DSA pair to own a conservative. I mean, it's true. You know? Like, oh no, the 2026 Democratic Socialists of America platform abolished the Electoral College? You mean the anti-democratic machine that is designed to not allow for true democracy in America? The horror. Like, I love how this segment is like trying to place these things as if they're bad, and it's just like, wait a minute. All my homies hate the Electoral College. The Electoral College fucking sucks. You know? Or replace the president and Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress. Wait, you mean that we shouldn't have a supreme executive that rules like a king? And we should have a judiciary that is, you know, actually controlled by Congress? The democratically elected body in the United States. Wait a minute, that actually starts to make a little bit of sense here. Abolish the Senate? You mean one of the parts of Congress that people hate the most? Wait a minute. Wait a minute, they're spitting. Let them talk.
It's those institutions constitutionally, given they are branches of our current government.
Well, I think that it's long been
Also worth noting that Congress does have the power to make courts and alter the judiciary, meaning that if Congress were to get its rear in gear, we could actually have Congress make like a nullification court to go over everything that the Roberts Court has ruled on and overturn if necessary. We could have Congress making like a new kind of court that is designed to like rotate the active Supreme Court. We could have Congress packing the circuit courts and like remaking how that system works. Like that's already something that Congress could do right now. But, you know, whatever.
A demand of not just democratic socialists, but progressives all around the world to live in a more parliamentary democracy. Democracy where we aren't such an outlier among the world's countries. So if you look at the DSA's proposal for what the structure of a state should be, I just want to be clear, it looks something like the House of Commons dominated United Kingdom. You know, this isn't some sort of authoritarian leap into a one-party state.
You don't understand. Dogs and cats will become friends. There will be glitter and rainbows everywhere. Hide your grandma because she will get that hip replacement for free. Oh no.
This is just like a more parliamentary vision of a republic. Obviously, certain things like abolishing the Senate is very tricky constitutionally. There would obviously need to be some sort of constitutional convention. These are far-reaching demands. There's other considerations like the Article 5, which would require a wide swath of
Honestly, Jeff Hinckley, no one has ever said something in chat as offensive as calling me Jen Psaki. But you know, that with my haircut and the hair color, you know, I'll own that insult. I'll own that insult.
Of consent to do this, but there's ways I think that we can erode what I personally see, and I know a lot of DSAers see it as the undemocratic power of the Senate.
I mean, like, I feel really fucking called out. I feel called out here. Gender Psaki, indeed. Fuck. Devastating.
Through measures short of abolition as well in the short term.
So just to follow up on that, I mean, the founders of this country in 1776 adopted a constitutional republic, not a representative.
Also, Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Can we just also... I fucking love the first thing out of her mouth. This guy's just like, nah, that's wrong. You've already fucked up.
Democracy. They particularly set up the Senate to have a republic representation so that wasn't majority rule. So are you advocating that there...
No, the Senate was designed specifically to dilute the power of voters. It was specifically set up as a kind of anti-democratic system on purpose.
Vision for the future of the country be thrown out for something new?
That's absolutely incorrect. The Constitution was not established in 1776. 1776 was when we laid out the broad vision for the United States, and that was a vision.
They wanted a constitutional republic in 1776.
We experimented with many different forms of governance before landing on the Constitution. What we decided in 1776 was that we wanted to live in a country that embodied Enlightenment principles with liberty, with justice, with the pursuit of happiness. And there's many different forms that a government can take. I think we can all agree as Americans that that government should be both democratic in some form, but also should have Republican protections. So in other words, I believe deeply in the Bill of Rights, for example. So I just want to, again, push back on a certain narrative, which I'm not saying you're saying that's...
Why do the right-wing people not know history? It's because they were taught wrong as a joke. I mean, essentially. Like, a lot of them you have to understand their knowledge of civics begins and ends with that one course they got in high school. And for a lot of them, that might have been 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you know? So, and they lack the curiosity to have like continued to investigate history and like continue to broaden their knowledge base. So they're stuck.
Socialists want to get rid of everything that's good in the US, every protection that ordinary Americans have from the state. I think we always will need some sort of balance between democracy and rule by the majority.
Hey, Chris Zaide, someone who's also watched Kung Pao. Excellent film.
And protection for minorities and protection for individual liberties. So, of course, I agree on that point.
Yeah, that was why we have a constitutional republic, not a straight democracy where majority rule takes away the rights of the minority, which seems like you're proposing if you were to get rid of the Senate. But we'll move on. I want to get Grace in here.
Is a Republican platform.
Okay. Grace.
Oh, it's totally fucking her up to hear him use Republican in such a way as to not mean the GOP. It's so funny.
On a call recently launching the DSA's 2026 platform, Michaela Brangan said that part of the endorsement process included candidates endorsing these policy proposals, which we just discussed. So as you move forward, is there any concern within DSA that candidates...
Wait, what did they cut out? Like, they cut something there. What did they cut out? I need to know. Was it more of this lady getting owned?
Co-signing things like abolishing the Supreme Court and the U.S. Senate are too far left, at least in this moment, to win over moderates and independents nationally?
Yeah, thanks for that question. That's a really common media narrative that we've been hearing again and again. But I think if you talk to regular people, they know that something's extremely broken with...
Like, what's crazy to me is asking this question is just asking her to, like, elaborate on why Americans fucking hate Congress. Like, the approval rating for Congress is ridiculously low. We have a graph of approval ratings of Congress over time. Here it is from...
Am I losing it, or does it feel like Grace has to talk to this host like she's 5?
No, of course not. Like, of course they have to, because also they're trying to talk to the folks watching. You know, they're trying to talk to really the audience for News Nation, who needs to be talked to, at an introductory level, right? But here is the approval rating of Congress from 2009 to 2026. Congress only has a 15% approval rate, and that's relatively okay historically, compared to, years past. If you look back at like 2017, 2019, like it's not doing so hot. So all that being said, if Congress right now has an approval rating of only 15%, yeah, more people than you might imagine are going to be okay with Congress, being altered, because people are like, well, clearly what's happening right now doesn't work. So we need to try something new.
Our political system, and they want to change it. And this is true across the political spectrum. No one who learned about the U.S. government in our government classes in middle and high school is actually satisfied and feels like what is written in the Constitution is working for them in reality. So we want to try some new things. Yes, we expect our candidates that we endorse to embrace those ideas just as any organization would and should. And we know from talking directly to voters that they are dissatisfied too with the state of politics and the economy. So we're offering a new vision, and more people are getting on board.
It's interesting you both have mentioned the UK. We just had America's 250th birthday. I don't know why we would leave the UK just to go back to the same system that they have currently in place in their parliament, but that's another discussion.
But they're clearly not suggesting we go to the UK system. And also, when we left the UK and declared independence, we were declaring independence from a monarchy. What are you talking about?
Oshkar, do you think that voters supporting the DSA are actively in
we actively hated the king and the parliament that were active at the time? The king had more power.
favor of more in this platform, which includes defunding police and prisons, or do you think that they like the idea of voting for more socialist, quote?
Oh no, defund the Department of War that's got record amounts of funding at the expense of the money that was supposed to help your Mima stay in her nursing home? Oh no, stop genocide from happening? Oh no, abolish the secret police that are abducting people off the streets? The horror.
Free stuff that you guys are calling for in terms of what you don't want to have to be funded by personal means, but rather through the state.
This is what I was trying to talk about the other day, how like conservative coverage of DSA is doing so much to recruit for DSA. It's crazy. Most people watching this are like, wait a minute, this sounds incredible. I should become part of DSA. And if you're watching out there, you can become part of DSA. Join our Discord. There's a link down below in the description, and you can reach out to Gamergy, and she'll help you make it to your very first DSA meeting. We want to help you become part of political change in America. We'll help you do it. All right? Let's go, folks. And you can also join your local Dems too. That doesn't hurt. And you can reach out to Dragonfly for help doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, let's say someone could be a libertarian and only agree with 80 or 90% of the libertarian platform. I personally am not in favor of defunding the police, but I am in favor of the overall vision laid out by the Democratic Socialists of America, which is to say, what is the point of having a police and prison system? Is it not to deter crime and also to rehabilitate people, to bring people back into society? I think we could all look at our prison system and say that we often are taking people who've committed crimes, but turning them into
Remember, the same chucklefucks who are saying, we don't want to go back to England's system with a king, are the same ones advocating for God Emperor Trump.
Oh, 100%. They're the same ones who are like posting AI generated images of Donald Trump as like the Emperor of Man from Warhammer and thinking how cool and based it would be if he ruled forever, you know? 100% Sake Tanuki. Thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. There isn't a genocide in Gaza. There is an ongoing genocide in Gaza. They are continuing to throttle aid. They are continuing to bomb the folks in Gaza. And they are continuing to seize land in Gaza, systematically depriving people of their ability to return home. It is a mass ethnic cleansing campaign that is, in fact, part of a wider genocidal campaign.
Are more hardened criminals who have no recourse when they get out of prison. No easy.
Lol, most of them do the King Trump thing because it annoys people. This is the thing, I just want to throw this out there before we continue, but this is a thing that I see a lot where like, oh, no, they're just posting the Trump memes because it's a joke. I've spent a lot of time on the internet, and specifically, I've spent a lot of time in the deeply conservative circles of like 4chan, 8chan, stuff like that. I've like seen what they talk about on there. And I can tell you for sure that when you go to far right forums online, they post, you know, the most hateful things you can possibly imagine about all sorts of minorities. And they will always, always, always say that it's a joke. Always. And what happens with these groups is that they will say it's a joke. I'm just joking, bro. You can't handle a joke. Haha. If you react first and get triggered, you effectively lose the social interaction, right? But what that does is it normalizes the action, it normalizes the ideology, and it ingrains it until suddenly one day everyone is sitting around and suddenly no one is joking. They all actually believe that shit. They actually believe the hateful rhetoric. They actually believe the joke. It's effectively a form of collective gaslighting. And it's, I don't think, good to embrace collective gaslighting as a positive when it comes to things like, oh, hey, we should have Donald Trump be president forever. It's all just a joke until it's not. For nearly half of Trump voters, overt appreciation of Hitler is acceptable. As when Trump reportedly praised the generals who served Adolf Hitler in World War II, and when Trump suggested that Hitler did some good things, which again was reported on widely in the press, Recent polling from YouGov presents Americans with a series of questions related to Trump's reported comments. For example, poll respondents were asked what they would do if a candidate they supported said that Hitler had done some good things. Only a quarter of people said they would still support that candidate. A plurality said they would support the candidate's opponent. Among Republicans, though, 2/3 said they would stick with the candidate or were not sure what they would do. Among those who said they plan to vote for Trump this year, just under half said they would vote for the candidate anyway. So when we're talking about this, like, it is worth remembering it's all jokes until suddenly it's not.
The avenue, at least, back into normal life. So I think there are certain of these issues that if we take the most extreme form of the rhetoric, or I'm not saying you're doing this, but sort of the most extreme sort of rendering, it seems like something scary to people. But I think what ordinary candidates, and this is why DSA candidates are winning all over the country, are saying is that
Current GOP meeting. Audio only.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs.
Hitler.
Heil 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 Hitler.
Yeah, it's truly, truly the modern GOP meeting. God. Jojo Rabbit was a strange film, but very much worth watching.
listen, the old way isn't working. We need to rethink the way in which we handle our prisons, for instance. And I think that is a noble goal, though obviously we need to get into the policy nitty-gritty of all these issues.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, that extreme narrative isn't coming from people opposed to DSA. It's coming from people inside DSA actively saying during your organizing meetings that we want to abolish prisons. So I understand that, you don't agree with everything that a party has to offer, but that's coming from inside of your the organization you're a part of.
If I could jump in here, I would take a page out of Senator Sanders' handbook and say that the radical thing is not the idea that we should decrease our incarcerated population. The radical position is that America should have the most people in prison of any country in modern history, which is the current state of affairs. And I think if you ask most Americans if they think that is not only fiscally responsible, but morally conscionable, they would say no.
Okay.
Jesus fuck, she just got bodied. She just got bodied so hard. Because, yeah, of course, the radical position is that we should have the largest the radical position is we should have the largest incarcerated population on planet Earth. That is radical. That's actually a fucking insane thing to suggest that the United States should have. And yet conservatives are out here acting like it's the most normal thing in the world to essentially have enslaved like 250,000 people to produce license plates and like soaps and shit. Yeah, why would News Nation post this? Graphic violence depicted. No attempt to censor it.
I think lots of Americans would say they want violent crime to be reduced and that they want criminals to commit that to be in prison. But I don't think they want to have the highest number of prisons of any country.
I also, just worth noting that our prisons don't reduce the recidivism rate. We know of other countries that have prisons that do reduce the recidivism rate. And they're the prisons that conservatives make fun of in places like Sweden and Norway. Those prisons actually do reduce the rate at which people recommit crimes after they've been incarcerated. Here in America, we've effectively just said, well, you deserve to be enslaved and tortured if you go into prison. And, maybe you deserve to be raped too. Like, that is the default position conservatives have on prison in America. And you can tell because that's exactly what got supercharged when it came to concentration camps for undocumented people.
Modern history, and that's what we want to do.
All right, so let's move to Hassan Piker, who of course is one of your top campaign surrogates. He's been campaigning for DSA candidates in New York City and all over the country. He also just started displaying a newspaper from September 12th, 2001, in the background of his stream showing the Twin Towers engulfed in flames. So as one of the loudest pro-DSA voices, is this something that your movement represents?
Hassan is a shock jock, and he is a very successful one that has brought a lot of young people who are disaffected, who spend a lot of time online, into a movement that actually connects them with their politics and with real action that they can take at the ballot box and talking to their neighbors. So I'm not in the business of defending the views of every single one of our 120,000 members, but I think he's speaking to a real anger that people feel, and that we are turning into something that is a democratic revolution. And I want to emphasize the democratic aspect. We know
What's wild is that this is a perfect parry. It's incredible. We're seeing it. We're seeing it happen in real time.
Perfect.
no way endorse any sort of violent overthrow, and we are winning at the ballot box because of the vision that we have put forward.
So just to follow up on that, as a DSA co-chair with one of your top surrogates, Hassan Piker, who is at all of the parties when your candidates win, he's been campaigning in Michigan for your Senate candidate. You can't just say what he said about murdering capitalists and watching their blood run in the streets is wrong and not part of what DSA stands for?
I mean, I just said we would never endorse violence.
But particularly him and what he has said about this and murdering capitalists, millions of Americans who believe in capitalism across the country.
I want her to say, did I stutter? Did I stutter?
I'm pretty sure I very clearly answered your question. We would never endorse.
It's a yes or no question.
What is the question? If I endorse what he said?
Do you endorse what he said?
Okay,
great.
He's endorsing violence, but it's also a shock jock. And I think you're plenty familiar with the role those play in the media ecosystem.
So he's endorsed.
She's so tilted. Fuck.
Violence, but he's still welcome to campaign with your candidates in races across the country.
We really value the platform that he brings and the viewers that he brings, yes, and the anger that he speaks to, and he turns that into something
his
productive.
Second biggest flaw in my book. He's improving his fashion choices on stream.
This is true. It's deeply problematic. He's correcting one of his previous weak points, and it is it's disturbing how powerful it's making him. Which, you know, I don't have a problem with, except it's making it harder for me to reach my goal of being bigger than Hassan. Every time he corrects one of his weaknesses, it makes it harder for me to catch up. And that's difficult, you know? Because, like, sure, I want to get into my suit era too, but, like, I don't have the money to get the tailoring he has access to. What did DSA types say about the homeless? That they should be housed. We should have housing first initiatives in every part of America.
Okay,
if I could jump in just on the Hassan point, I do think that Hassan Piker is often speaking to people who are quite angry, who are out on the fringes of the political movement, and he's telling them, even if his rhetoric, and again, you know, it's hard to, I'm trusting you on the context, but he's often telling these people that actually there's a route to your anger that's through constructive
He's certainly giving
politics,
them a route.
through democratic politics, through campaigning for candidates with quite, you know, boring.
Jack, you are more fashionable than him. Example, last night's jacket. That's true, but I also need to work out so I can be like sexy lady yoked. That's the problem, right? Like I need to continue to work on myself. There's a lot of work left to do, but every time he makes himself stronger, that makes more work for me. And I am at heart a lazy person. I want to play video games. But you know what? I will do what I have to do. Just don't wear a Mao jacket. Why would I wear the jacket of an authoritarian? I fucking hate authoritarianism.
Demands like Medicare for all and other demands like that. And I think the corollary is on the right.
It does, but we want as many strong leftists as possible. Yeah. Like I'm not actually upset.
I don't condemn the Trump supporters from Republican Party for not condemning every single member of their
He's a top surrogate. We have to move on. We got a lot to get to. And I really appreciate both of you being here and explaining and answering the questions.
Incoming Noi from Dorahadoro Jack Ark.
Unironically, like I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Okay, like I've got some muscle built up. I just need to I just need to like make the cardio happen more consistent. But we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Maybe I'll do a Noe cosplay at some point. That'd be fun. Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs.
Sankara, thank you for joining us. And Grace, stay with us. We will hear from 2 other guests and get your reaction to them in just a second. So you may have heard of an online personality.
Yeah, by the way, we're only like halfway through this segment. I'm so happy News Nation put this together. This is like my just like an early Christmas gift. This is wonderful. I'm so excited because it's just 40 minutes of News Nation conservatism getting owned over and over and over again. It's wonderful.
Named Hassan Piker, we just talked about him. He's quickly becoming one of the biggest mouthpieces for the DSA, and lately he has nothing but praise for China's chairman.
How can he be one of the biggest mouthpieces if he has one of the smallest heads? Proportionally, that just doesn't make sense. If he's one of the smallest talking heads, how could he have one of the biggest mouthpieces? That just doesn't make sense.
And Mao. Piker says Mao changed the entire planet. Others say he did so by enacting policies that led to the deaths of tens of millions of Chinese people. We wanted to talk to people who have had direct experience living under socialism.
I mean, I do have to say, I do think that praising Mao is cringe as fuck for Hassan to do. I don't care for it. And I think he should cut it out. But that's just me.
And communism. So joining us now is Xi Van Fleet, who lived under Mao and is the author of Mao's America, and Alina Fernandez Revuelta, Fidel Castro's daughter and a Cuba anti-communist activist. Thank you both for being here. So Xi, let's start with you. When you hear commentators like Hassan Piker with massive young audience praising figures like Mao as someone who changed the world for the better, what are your concerns about that narrative?
It's just totally disgusting. And he is a communist, and we all know about it. But he is a communist who knows very little about real communism. He thought, and he said,
wait, but China isn't real communism. This is what makes me mad. Communism is a stateless, classless, moneyless society. China had literally all 3 of those things in spades, even during Mao's time. Like, if anything, you could call it like a dictatorship, but it wasn't serving the general welfare. It bothers me a lot because it confuses and muddies the waters, and sometimes I wonder if it's being done purposely. But when Hassan's not wrong, he's just really bad at talking. I mean, that could also very well be. It also doesn't help that they're not really fully quoting him because I have no idea what he's actually saying about this. It's weird that people still call China communist. Exactly. Like, China's not communist. China's a fucking capitalist state, and they were engaged in state capitalism prior to the Dengist revolution that opened up like the free enterprise zones across China, and now like it's basically just capitalism, you know? But like, if communism is a stateless, classless, moneyless society, China has always been in what, you know, would maybe, if you were being extraordinarily charitable and taking them at face value, the early stages of a transition to communism. The argument being that, and this stems from the period of time during like the oh god, what's it called? The Communist Internationale, which is this period where it became clear that there were 2 distinct branches of socialism forming, which were revolutionary socialism, i.e., we need to violently overthrow the state in order to impose a socialist order, and evolutionary socialism, which is, hey, in order for socialism to actually work, you need to embrace the principles of socialism, which is democracy. You need to convince enough people that democracy in the economy and democracy in the government are both good things. And I am firmly in the camp of being an evolutionary socialist. I do believe in socialism, but I believe in arriving to it by convincing people that it's the right thing to do. and using the democratic levers of power that exist in order for us to transition. And I think that that is far more effective because, as you can see, the revolutionary attempts to impose communism have been colossal failures by and large, and have resorted and turned into dictatorships. And they use the language of dictatorship of the proletariat to kind of mask what was happening, but I am virulently anti-authoritarian. And I reject the notion that we need like an authoritarian dictator to transition us to a democratic future, because I just don't believe that is. I don't believe that that's the path forward. I think that results in a lot of suffering. I think that results in a lot of bloodshed, and I think that is ultimately deeply, deeply a deep betrayal to what it means to be committed to the socialist project. But that's me.
There's some excesses. Yeah, it's just 18 million people, no big deal. But he also have no idea that Mao killed more communists than any other communist leader. Mao killed so many communists. Actually, the Cultural Revolution is Mao's inquisition. Absolutely killed and or persecuted most of his comrades. And then the second...
Jack, that's exactly what Hassan is doing. He's telling his voters to join DSA. Yeah, like, I am aware of Hassan's content. I dislike how he talks about China and Mao quite a bit. I dislike the embrace of authoritarians who, wrap themselves in communism, which Hassan has done in the past, and I just disagree with that. I think he and I are aligned on most things. That's one of the things where I'm just like, I wish he hadn't done that. I think that's bad, actually. But I do believe that he's committed to the DSA project. I don't believe he is a revolutionary socialist in the sense of he wants to like take over America and like install a dictator. I don't believe that. And I do think that this is an attempt to smear him, obviously. I'm just stating that like the way he talked about Mao invited this exact kind of response in a way that I find deeply unhelpful to what he's trying to advocate for. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not condemning him. I just think that he made a mistake.
On a side note, calling your cat Mao is pretty incredible if you understand Mandarin as Mao is cat.
Mao is a great cat name. That is true.
Number 2.
You could also call a cat Chairman Meow. You could do that.
Person of the Communist Party in China was the president of China. He was persecuted to death by Mao because Mao considered him a rival.
Love you, Jack, but how do you? But some of your thoughts on socialism are a bit short-sighted. How do you defend your socialist project without authority if capitalists are trying to destroy your society? You build up democratic power. You build up the kind of democratic power that allows you to crush and redistribute the wealth that makes capitalists a threat in the first place. And by building up that democratic political power, you are then in a position to have the mandate of the people. And also, if capitalists want to beef with you about it, you also then democratically control the levers of power all the way to the top, which basically defangs them. And if they want to fuck with the military of one of the most powerful nations on earth, be my guest. But like that is, I will tell you, going to be the final nail in the coffin of any kind of capitalist power if that is the direction things go. So the reason I advocate for democratic means is because if and when things do get nasty because the capitalists are angry at getting taxed and having to pay their fair share in society, they find themselves aligned up against the entire political and polity of America. You need a united front in order to beat them. As it has always been, they have money, we have people. And the project is building up enough people so that they realize it's a doomed prospect to try and pick a fight with that many people, regardless of how much money they have. And then you slowly over time demonstrate the benefits of redistributing that amount of wealth that they are hoarding for themselves to the general public through public works projects, through investment in different technologies, through bettering people's lives, etc. And then suddenly it kind of becomes like your entire socialist project, democratic socialism itself, becomes kind of a third rail where if capitalists attempt to fuck with it, like they find themselves on the wrong side of basically everybody. So that's kind of the thing. Like the entire project isn't short-sighted. I would argue it's actually long-sighted. It's far-sighted. You know, you got I would argue that my proposal is to build a snowball. This might be a silly comparison, but in RTS competitive play, you have the concept of building up a death ball, which is you build up a critical mass of units before you attack, and then you just like rampage through your opponent's base until you win. Because the amount of units you have assembled is simply too overwhelming for them to do much about. I'm proposing basically a similar concept, but with political power and no actual violence. Full communism couldn't exist with our species? I disagree. A blitz attack? Not a blitz attack. It's just a project of building political power. It's just that the kind of political power we have access to as individuals organizing in society is a kind of power that capitalists literally are incapable of developing for themselves. Because capitalists can only develop power by purchasing it, whereas we develop power by organizing collectively. And eventually, our organizing is worth more than their dollars. And then we win. Suggesting we construct additional pylons? Exactly. You get it. The only concern I have with communism is the stateless part. And that might be we run into issues. But I don't have a solution to every issue with communism. Again, it's why I call myself a socialist rather than a communist. Because I do believe that we have a path forward to get to democratic worker co-ops as the primary driver of our economic activity. And that would basically fulfill the requirement of, worker ownership of the means of production. That's something that I know we can get to. That's something I know in my mind and in my heart and in my bones that we can get to. I'm not so sure about what the steps between, worker ownership of the means of production and abolishing the commodity form, getting rid of class and money. I have no idea how you get from point B to point C, but, I figure that'll be a problem for when we reach point B. I'm nothing if not pragmatic.
So I just want to Hassan Piker to know. He will be the first one to go.
Jesus Christ. Hassan Piker, you're going to be the first one to the wall. Like, holy shit, lady.
Well, Mao Zedong killed...
My cousin had cats named Chairman Meow and Fidel Castro. That's very funny. I like that. Love that for your cousin.
Yeah, he's just too opinionated and he's rich. That's enough for him to be considered the enemy of the state.
Well,
good thing we're not discussing making America a dictatorship, huh? And instead discussing how we can expand democracy.
Mao killed so many people that he actually lowered the life expectancy rate for the entire planet for the period of a decade, which is just...
Can we also just... I know we're getting really sidetracked here. I know this is turning into a really long segment, but I do want to say, when it comes to talking about, for example, just one of the most basic prerequisites for socialism and communism, worker ownership of the means of production is like the thing. Like that's the thing that Marx talks about in his writings. And my question is, when people want to call China communist under Mao or the USSR communist under Stalin, or or any of his subsequent successors, like, did workers own the means of production in either of those societies? No, they didn't. The line from the state was that all workers participate in the state, and so when the state owns shit, technically workers own that shit. But that's not what worker ownership of the means of production means. It means owning the place where you work. It is not the abstract idea that by participating in a political system, you then, own in some kind of national sense, like the farm you work on. It means having agency to run the farm you work on. Like that's a vital, important part.
It's astonishing. But Alina, what are your thoughts when you hear DSA more generally talking about this type of democratic socialism? As you know better than anyone else, the Castro regime promised socialism and ended up with 8,000 firing squad.
Well, Billy the Kid, it's also worth noting that people aren't inherently selfish. The reason human beings have succeeded as a species is because we work in social groups. We work collectively. We work together. Every civilization that has ever existed exists because of human cooperation. And, that's possible because we're a social species. When we talk about this shit, it's genuinely, I reject the notion that people are just inherently selfish. Our survival has been predicated for millennia on us working together.
Executions and not letting people leave the island.
Well, that speech is the typical one. Communism, they try to turn people against people. It's always like that. You are a traitor if you don't think alike. You are in jail if you express yourself like he's doing so violently. But actually, in communist society, that's what they do. They encourage confrontation. They encourage violence among the same people. Cubans against Cubans, Chinese against Chinese, family against family. It's terrible. And it's very upsetting to see that something is very wrong in the educational system in this country when people really don't know who Mao Zedong was, or who Stalin was, or who Fidel Castro was.
So, Alina, just a follow-up on that, for the DSA leaders who say, look, we're an organization that is all about making sure that people who have issues with the current economy, who don't think this current political system is working for them, and therefore we should change it, and this is our outline of how we can do that with our platform. What is your response to them saying we're offering policy solutions through a democratic process? This isn't communism like you're talking about from Cuba.
It is. People get attached to things where they're promised for free. And, these regimes have the legend that education and healthcare is for free. But what you don't know is that you get a salary of maybe $10 a month. That's generous. And if you go to a grocery store in one of those countries, you have the same prices that the grocery store here in the United States. It's so abusive. It's so inhuman. Is so humiliating for society that I cannot describe it in such a short period of time. Free, but what you don't know is that you get a salary of maybe $10 a month. That's generous. And if you go to a grocery store in one of those countries, you have the same prices that the grocery store here in the United States. It's so abusive. It's so inhuman. It's so humiliating for society that I cannot describe it in such a short period of time.
The reason I played that twice is because it's incredible to say all of this without pointing out that part of the reason Cuba has such dire economic constraints is because the United States blockades trade to Cuba. The United States has been blocking supplies to Cuba for decades. That's there's no reason Cuba should be impoverished other than the United States has a standing policy to actively impoverish it.
I don't have the
We'll have you back to talk about it because this issue is certainly not going away, especially in this election cycle. But Ji, I heard you or saw you nodding your head when Alina was speaking. What did you want to say about what she said?
Yeah, I can of course add to it, but I also want to address what the two guests before you talk about a prison. I think that China itself is a big prison. Let's make it clear. And also in China, it's not just violent criminals. They are prisoners of conscience. And once we get away from our republic, we will have like a mob rule. And the prison will fill up quickly. And that time, it's not criminals. It's people who committed thought crimes.
All right. So with that, let's bring it back in New York City DSA co-chair Grace Mauser to join us with this conversation.
Oh, this lady's about to go beyond plus ultra. I can feel it. I can feel it in my bones. She's about to demolish all three of these chumps.
Conversation and to address what you both have said. Grace, you just heard from Alina and she. They're both still with.
Also, can I just say her shirt looks very comfortable. I'm kind of jealous.
Us on the show, how would you convince them that your style of socialism in America would be different than their experiences in Cuba and China that they see happening now and the echoes of the platform that they're very familiar with?
Well, I'm certainly not sure I can convince them in the next few minutes, and I really want to respect the experiences that they've gone through. But the difference to me is really our emphasis on democracy. If the majority of Americans are not interested in these policies, they will not be enacted. And the majority of Americans right now aren't yet. So we don't have anything close to socialism, and we don't have anything close to what we're talking about. But more and more Americans are interested in it, and the way that they're expressing that is in the ballot box. And we are extremely committed to doing that. We are interested in
I love that this exactly parallels what I'm talking about. It's wonderful, it's wonderful when I go into a segment and I haven't pre-watched and I go off on what I feel like might be an excessive tangent, and then suddenly that tangent becomes extremely relevant to what is being discussed. Because essentially what she's saying is that the difference between what's happening in the United States and what happened in Cuba and China...
I didn't recognize the DSA company chair at first, but her nose has a familiar ring.
Does she have a nose ring? It's hard for... Yeah, she does. God damn it, Saki. Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. But it is very fun because she's exactly talking about the difference between revolutionary socialism and evolutionary socialism. And she's like, the fundamental difference here is we are employing democracy, which ideally kind of sidesteps the concerns about like, oh no, what if there's, 14 million people dead by the end of this? Because you're getting the majority of the country on your side first, which should preclude any kind of like mass act of violence. And since it is continuing to rely on democratic rule, whoever is doing mass violence internally is not going to rule democratically for very long. Let's let her cook.
Achieving a path that's closer to something that Denmark or Norway has gone through, where they have had a political revolution through the ballot box rather than something like what China or Cuba has gone through.
Alina, what is your response to what Grace has just said?
I will highly recommend to establish scholarships for your people to go to live in China for at least 3 to 6 months, and in Cuba to learn really what that system is able to give.
Hell yeah. Let's do it. You know what? That's a great idea. We should have more cultural exchange programs with China and Cuba. You're right. That's a wonderful idea. Let's do it.
For the future.
Ji,
it will be very educational.
Ji, as a follow-up to... Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say that when you put whatever adjective...
This new Red Scare bullshit is coming for us. Paul Robeson laughed it off. Pete Seeger did time in the state pen till his conviction got thrown out. If we're all stubborn bastards together, we win.
Hell yeah. It's one of the reasons why I'm not getting psyched out about like NSPM7 or whatever, NSP7, whatever it's called. I forget the exact acronym. But I'm not going to worry about that because functionally, whether it is a terrifying threat or an empty one, these bastards are going to do what they're going to do. But I'm going to persist and I'm going to remain consistent. And if we all stick together, we will get through this and we will fucking win. Excellent point, Begrackle. Thank you for the $10 super chat.
In front of communism or in front of socialism, it doesn't change its nature. It is still communism, it's still socialism. And you can say, oh, the people want free stuff. Let's just have free stuff. Remember, this country is built as a constitutional republic. Just because you and your friends want free stuff, and then we can just get free stuff. That's communism. And that never work out. Eventually, in communism, things will run out quick enough so everybody ends with nothing. And I was there, lived through it. So young people like you.
Man, I love this lady because like she's making her point look terrible in comparison. Because number one, obviously there are countries that have like Medicare for all like policies and they haven't collapsed. Obviously that there are systems we could put in place that would make America better and less bad for working people. And so like when she starts coming in here and she's just like, you all just want free stuff, and it's just like, whoa, like, yeah. But also, other countries can have it. America isn't so exceptional that we need to put up with exceptionally bad treatment for working class people. Like, goddamn.
Please, read some history. Learn history.
I would love to respond to that with some examples of this free stuff we're talking about. Public education, public schools are free to Americans. We want to extend that to younger children. Things like Social Security is a benefit that all Americans have paid into, and many people like that. Medicare and Medicaid, we believe that that program should be extended, not just to the elderly and the low income, but the middle class and working class as well. These programs are actually already part of American lives, and Americans really like them, and I think would support across the political spectrum, support the idea of them being expanded.
All right, I just want to ask a follow-up.
She's so fucking good at this. She's so good at this. She just made that lady look like a fucking chump. Oh my god. That's crazy. Okay, someone asked a really interesting and important question. What's the incentives to start a business under communism? That's a great question, right? So, here's my theory, if you will. Under socialism, right, where we have democratic control over workplaces, for example, you effectively transition from privately owned corporations and companies to democratic worker co-ops, where everyone who works at a place has a say in how it's run, has a say in what their working conditions are, has a say in what their compensation is, etc. Right? We can go into more detail on that another time, but essentially that's what you get, right? Under that system, you still have profit incentive for people to work together and run a successful business, because the more successful you are, the more you can like grow your business or, invest in yourself and your fellow employees, right? But when you're talking about, so there's incentive there to start a democratic worker co-op and to work in that system, because the harder you work, the better you do as a collective economic enterprise, the more you can like take time off, or the more you can pay one another. Like that's a pretty good incentive, actually. It's a much better incentive actually than exists right now under capitalism, where you just have to hope your dipshit boss decides to promote you if you want to make more money. The other thing, and the thing I find to be even more interesting, is if you then look down the road at what would incentivize people to work together under full-on communism. You have a stateless, classless, moneyless society. what's left to motivate people? And the answer that I have to that is that I think we would have a fundamental shift in what incentives look like, you know? Because I think the shift would be, how do you want to like serve your community, serve your neighbors? And it would be a shift of prioritizing money and like base accumulation of wealth so as to enrich yourself and make yourself safe in our economic system. And it would be a shift away from that to, how do I want to serve my neighbors? You know, because there are some people who just like fixing stuff. There are some people who just like, you know, would collect garbage because like it's fun to ride around on the garbage truck and like, you know, take it to the dump. Like there are people who are just really into doing those things. And it would be, what do you personally want to do? And maybe there would be incentives for less pleasant jobs. Like maybe there would be a greater social prestige for people who do less desirable jobs. But the incentive to do things under communism would be a specifically very, very different. And I think to those of us right now living under capitalism, it would feel maybe almost alien how different the incentive structure would be. You know, that again is something that like I find interesting to think about as like a thought experiment. I think it is also far beyond what will be achieved in my lifetime, so I'm not gonna get too stressed out about the details. But great question.
Question, Grace, about something you said about Denmark going to, getting structured like a European, quote, socialist country rather than a Chinese communist style or Cuba. You have all these conferences around the country, one of them being in Silicon Valley at the DSA conference. You have posters that show socialists that you guys look up to. One of them is Assata Shakur, who murdered a New Jersey state police officer and fled to Cuba. She did that in the 1970s. Then you have also Che Guevara, who was Argentinian, helped Fidel Castro establish his regime and oversaw executions. So why is it that the DSA is endorsing these kinds of quote socialists rather than, I don't see much about Denmark in the material you guys are handing out or in your platform?
I'm so sorry. I actually don't know what you're talking about because in our DSA office, we don't have any of those posters. So I'm not sure I'm able to respond to the question you're asking.
I'm sorry. It really appears like you might be full of shit. I'm really sorry.
Okay, well, people can see it on your DSA website. Go ahead.
Can I say something too?
About education? We poured so much money in public education, and it failed miserably. Look at what happened in Baltimore. We have so much money there, and not one student passed.
You're so right, crazy old lady. We shouldn't have any public education. We should get rid of, K through 12 schools. You're so right. It should all be private schools, and the children should once again go to work in the mines. You're so right. How brilliant.
The examination. And it's not like we don't have enough money there. And for education, my question is, the money never solved the problem. So, and you want to expand that failure model to younger...
Look, I have a lot of skepticism about this idea of like money has never solved the problem, because money has solved an awful lot of problems.
Kids, no way.
All right.
Can I say something? I would like to say, Grace, that I think we should approach positions, because I think we can learn from each other instead of being in opposite ends of the vision for a better future.
Absolutely.
I think that's good.
You know what? Love that approach much better. You know what? Let's learn from each other. I like that. Let's go with that option.
Advice. All right. Alina Fernandez, Revuelta, G. Van Fleet, and Grace Mauser. Thank you all for joining me. Great to see you. All right, and now we're going.
Guys, we still have an entire 16 minutes of this left. I'm so happy. This is my Super Bowl.
I'm going to hear from former members of the Democratic Socialists of America about why they left the movement. Joining me now, Jake Altman. He's the author of the book Socialism Before Sanders.
his head shape is incredible. His head shape is I'm at a I'm at a loss.
And spent years as a DSA member, and Father Robert Circio, who is now a Catholic priest, but spent years as a socialist activist. Great to see you both. So Jake, you were a member of the DSA since the 15 years ago, 2010s. What initially drew you to the movement, and why did you leave?
I had been involved in the labor.
Did we forget to tell you that socialism is bad?
They're trying their best to tell us that socialism is bad, and yet
movement and had interacted with some other groups on the left that were at the time more extreme than DSA. And I was looking to, work in a productive way.
Also, Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Very much appreciate your support.
With a group on the left to be pragmatic and build something tangible. DSA appealed to me at that time. I can say the organization has changed dramatically since I first joined.
And how has it changed?
We've seen, even going back to 2015,
Wait a minute, is this guy about to say he got embroiled in like some online kerfuffle? I get the distinct impression that this guy got like made fun of online and, crashed out.
I raised concerns about the direction of the organization. There were young members who were very interested in working with extremist groups on the left, Leninist groups. I can remember I was asked to do a debate. I raised concerns to a national leader. I said, I might not be the right person. I see the direction the organization is headed in. Are you sure I should be the one representing the organization? And at the time I was told, yes, Jake, we agree with you. It's just a few people clustered around Jacobin magazine.
Okay.
Wait, I don't think Jacobin magazine is full of Leninists, though. Wait a minute.
Fast forward to today. I think we see now, looking at DSA, there are all kinds.
The dude on the left is 1 billion% a Zionist, mad about the anti-Zionist resolution. Oh, that could be. That did make a lot of people mad.
Of communist caucuses in the organization.
Do you think they're being honest about their democratic socialism?
Well, yeah, but wait, pretending like DSA has never been a big tent organization before is deeply dishonest. They've been big tent the entire time, as far as I've been aware. Yeah, there are gonna be some crazy people online saying shit that's wild, but that's not representative of the wider organization.
Or are they just using that as a nice way to say the things that they can't really get away with publicly because the American public is not there yet?
I think there's a whitewash campaign underway to say this is nice, cozy Scandinavian social democracy when it is not.
Father,
I also, if this guy was actually active in DSA, I just want to point out that this guy is being deeply dishonest. The idea that, there's a whitewashing campaign going on to say that this is Scandinavian socialism when it's not. But, as we talked about earlier today, DSA is a decentralized organization. There are many different chapters that have members that believe many different things. And when he's like, well, there's a communist caucus and that's bad. Yeah, but it's always been Big Tent. There's nothing new or different about that. A lot of folks in DSA are and have been farther left than just the Nordic model.
You worked inside a number of these campaigns. What is your perspective on why you decided to leave DSA and where it is now?
Well, I go back to the New Left days in the early 70s. I worked with Jane Fonda and Tom Hayden in the Campaign for Economic Democracy. Was somewhat involved in the farm workers movement, the gay movement, the beginnings of the gay movement, the beginnings of the feminist movement, the tail end of the Vietnam War protests.
Real liberalism, it sounds.
Yeah, well, what's interesting about it is how much has not changed. The conversation that I listened to with the DSA members was very similar to the kind of dynamics and debates we were having in our collective discussions at the time. The more radical members and the more moderate members and those in between who hadn't quite made up their mind.
When I know phrenology is a debunked pseudoscience, do they keep putting examples that make me doubt that?
It's kind of like when I'm like, well, phrenology is absolutely bullshit science, but then I see a cop on screen. You know, like, it just kind of be like that sometimes. You know, I can't explain it. I don't think it validates phrenology whatsoever. I just think that the overlap between cop and thumb face is genuinely wild. And honestly, this guy kind of has low-key cop face. I don't know how to interpret that, but I think you guys know what I mean.
I think there was a telling line from Grace when she said, well, he's just a shock jock, but we're very grateful for the thousands of young people who have been attracted to that. That's the point, that when you speak in those terms, those are the kinds of people that you are drawing. And if
you mean young people who are highly politically motivated to unfuck the country so they have a real future? You know, kind of like the kinds of people who are very, very opposed to the Vietnam War, which, again, you should know because you organized against the Vietnam War with DSA in the 70s.
The leadership of the organization cannot moderate that kind of language, that kind of attitude, that what ends up happening is the democracy that you had in France.
It's impossible to unfuck the country? No, it's not. It's never impossible to improve things.
The French Revolution, which was in effect a socialist manifestation of the Enlightenment. I don't think that it has to be that way, but that's the way it works out. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, Lord Acton said, who was an observer of the French revolutions that went on. And what convinced me ultimately and drew me back to my own faith, which I had abandoned about that time, was a deeper understanding of what private property was and its connection not just to material things, but to the life, the effort, the intelligence, the capacity of the human person who puts his or her life into mixing labor with the world.
This guy's a fucking kook. This guy's a kook. Like, I'm sorry, we need to back up for a minute.
For life, intelligence, to a deeper understanding of what private property was. And
private property, when we're talking about capitalism, is distinct from personal property, right? Private property is owned by capital. It's owned by the business owner for use of the business, right? So when we're talking about private property, we're not talking about the spiritual melding of when someone melds their labor into their work and into the private property they have. If you actually valued that, you would be in favor of socialism. You'd be in favor of worker ownership of the means of production, which in fact does value when labor and effort meld with material, right? Because when you have worker ownership of the means of production, it means that you as a worker in a factory own the factory with your fellow workers in that factory. And you collectively get to decide what is done with the proceeds of your labor. You collectively get to decide what your working conditions are. You collectively get to work together. And so when we're talking about valuing this spiritual melding of labor and private, property, the thing that does that is worker ownership of the means of production. It's not, workers doing their workday, putting their blood, sweat, and tears and effort into a job, and then all of that effort being siphoned up into profit by the guy who just happens to own the building, which is what happens right now under capitalism.
This connection, not just to material things, but to the life, the effort, the intelligence, the capacity of the human person who puts his or her life into mixing labor with the world, with the material world.
Yeah, isn't Bob's Mill like that? Yes, actually. Yes. You can, in fact, make democratic worker co-ops right now in America. many companies right now in America are democratic worker co-ops, which is why I can see the path from where we are now to point A, which is democratic ownership of the means of production, which would entail effectively just making it easier to start democratic worker co-ops and making it easier to transition existing companies into democratic worker co-ops, right? It's not actually a crazy idea once you start understanding that, one, they already exist right now, and two, are wildly beneficial for both the local economy and the people who work at them, and three, that you have pathways to transitioning to worker ownership already. It just needs to be more enforced by law in some cases, and it needs to be easier to start democratic worker co-ops. So, like, all of that said, it's also democratic worker co-ops are more efficient because the people working at that job know how to do their jobs better than like some fucking dipshit who's part of a venture capital firm, So all that being said, like, it's just, I think there are great arguments to be made for democratic ownership of the means of production.
Producing profits which serve other people. They are right to complain about the state of society today.
Sure.
Because we hardly have a free market. Those were good examples of socialist or socialist forms of organization, Social Security or Medicare or public schools. Not that we don't care about the well-being of people. We are concerned about the security, the social security of people. We're concerned about the education of people. But look at each of those bureaucratic institutions and how they fail to achieve the very object that they claim to be oriented toward.
Right.
That's what socialism does. It's filled with good intentions, but it ends up in horrendous misery, as we heard from the two ladies from China and Cuba. Both.
Again, I feel like the co-chair for DSA in New York made the excellent point that the difference between the Cuba and China and what DSA is trying to do is democracy. Democracy is a very key component.
Countries that I've visited in, and I can tell you and confirm in my conversations, and several times in both of those countries, that there are a whole bunch.
We definitely care about the well-being of people. That's why I'm still a frocked Catholic priest.
Indeed, Sake. Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs.
Bodies of people there who want to get out. I think the proof of it is that we build borders to protect our nation. They build borders to keep people in.
What are you talking about, dog? Like, part of the reason Cuba has to have the policies it does about immigration is because the United States has a fucking blockade against it. Like, that's... If there wasn't a blockade, the economic conditions wouldn't be as bad and people wouldn't want to leave their homes to go elsewhere to escape the poverty. He's talking about Attack on Titan. That makes more sense.
Yeah, that should say it all.
Absolutely. People are dying to get to America, not dying to get into communist, socialist regimes like Cuba and China. Jake...
Maybe we shouldn't have people dying to get into America,
though. Socialism. That doesn't challenge capitalism.
Indeed, Sake. Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. We want people to die trying to get into the United States. We don't want people not dying trying to get into China and Cuba. It's just like, what? What are you on?
Last question to you. Of course, DSA is very organized. We talked about the numbers of members. They've exploded over 120,000. They love the platform that someone like Hassan Piker has with thousands of young people. So what is the way to beat back these bad ideas since they're gaining political power in all of these primaries?
I think doing what we're doing right here, exposing the ideas, and then also out-organizing them. They are in the Democratic Party now. They are in the labor movement now. It's a very, very serious concern. There really are hardcore communists in this organization. They control the governing board. They're at war themselves inside the organization. The New York City...
Bub, it's just called democracy. It's just called hashing out policy differences via democratic processes. That's not a war. When the Republicans who were traditional conservatives encountered the Tea Party, that wasn't a war. God.
DSA and the rest of DSA is at war over the AOC endorsement. I mean, by exposing this, we are...
It's not a war. It is not difficult to understand. National DSA didn't endorse AOC. New York City DSA did endorse AOC. It's not a war. It's not complicated. It's a disagreement within the, disparate elements of DSA because they are allowed to disagree.
Are doing good work.
Well, I appreciate both of you coming on, Jake Altman and Father Sirico. Thank you very much for joining us tonight with your perspective. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, coming up, we're led to believe that American socialism is an organic grassroots movement funded by the young and disenfranchised, but is it really? News Nation's Rich McHugh followed the money, and it led to some pretty powerful people.
Hell yeah. Let's go. I'm very much enjoying all of this. This is incredible stuff. Okay, it is still going. There's just a weird black screen in the middle. There we go.
Today's leading DSA candidates pride themselves on the fact they can't be bought and that they are a result of grassroots and a movement of young people who want to change the country. But
what streaming software do I use? I use XSplit, but you should probably use OBS, which is free, and there are way more tutorials about it if something goes wrong.
That's not the full story. In fact, there's evidence that powerful billionaires may be pumping money into the DSA machine. News Nation investigative correspondent Rich McHugh took a closer look.
One thing I learned through all of this reporting is that, the established Democrats and Republicans have always had funding over a DSA and progressives. And the DSA figured out, finally, how to professionally fundraise. And that's we think of it as the DSA, just the DSA. But as Evan Barker says, it's not just them. It's all these groups have decided to come together for their own good. And that's why we're seeing all these victories across the country at this moment. Katie?
Well, fascinating. Rich McHugh, you're the best person we could have do that investigation. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Great to see you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we follow.
Wait, what? Wait, what? That was it? That was all he had to say?
I better break out my Netscape Navigator and go look up that on Metacrawler.
Yeah. Call me out for using XSplit. There are so many other older programs I use that you guys could roast me for, but I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to get roasted.
McHugh took a closer look.
One thing I learned through all of this...
Okay, so he took a closer look. What did he learn exactly?
Reporting is that, the established Democrats and Republicans have always had funding over a DSA and progressives. And the DSA figured out, finally, how to professionally fundraise. And that's we think of it as the DSA, just the DSA. But as Evan Barker says, it's not just them. It's all these groups have decided to come together for their own good. And that's why we're seeing all these victories across the country at this moment.
So his thorough investigation was DSA is raising money from everyday small dollar donors.
Of course!
The conspiracy thickens. They've got nothing. They've got literally nothing. It's just a dues-paying organization. Oh, fuck it.
That guy looks like American Rob Ford.
He does. He fucking does. Oh, fuck. Sake, you are on a streak tonight. Just roasting.
Well, fascinating. Rich McHugh, you're the best person we could have do that investigation. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Great to see you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we followed the money. We've heard from DSA leaders and defectors.
We followed the money, and we found exactly diddly shit. Moving on to our next part.
So we've even heard from survivors of socialist and communist regimes. After the break, we'll hear from current supporters of this movement. What are they so mad about, and what do they want to change? We'll ask them right after this. Welcome back. Well, despite everything you've heard so far, tens of thousands of Americans are still members of the Democratic Socialists of America. It's been a wake-up call for Democrats, and according to Vice President Vance, it's a wake-up call.
Yeah, if you had literally that little, why even bother throwing that into the segment at all?
For Republicans, too. Listen. So what are these problems and what are drawing voters to socialism? Joining us now, Nathan J. Robinson, current affairs editor-in-chief, and Monty Mader, progressive political commentator. Great to see you both. So Nathan, you told our producers that you don't have any DSA members to vote for in Louisiana, and you wouldn't call yourself a DSA voter, but you definitely say you're a socialist and are sympathetic to the DSA platform. So what about them is interesting to you?
I wrote a book called Why You Should Be a Socialist. So
why should we be a socialist? Tell me.
Well, you asked what the problems are, why people are upset, and J.D. Vance actually gets some of it there. I interviewed Memdani when he was running early, and he said he talked to New Yorkers and listened to their anger. Some of the things people are mad about: the rent is too high, young people feel like they can't afford a house, they'll never buy a house, cost of childcare is too high, they see a bloated military budget deploying our tax dollars for...
God, Nathan J. Robinson, when he's on point, is just like... He's like a satisfying Ben Shapiro fast talker, except instead of spewing lies, he's just like, yeah, you know, that's what's happening.
Or death and destruction. They see their jobs being replaced with AI. They feel they have no rights at their place of employment. They have no family leave. They're drowning in student debt. Billions of dollars are being spent for ICE to drag your neighbors away, throw them in a cage, or shoot them in their car. Then we have a totally out of control climate catastrophe with global warming spiraling out of control. Meanwhile, trillionaires are being minted while people are sleeping in the streets. And so a lot of young people look at that situation. They see it as crazy and unjust. They're angry and they want someone to do something about it.
All right, that's a long list of very serious problems, many that young people have gone through in generations past, I might add, but there are some...
That's a really long list of serious problems, but you know, maybe if we just tell people like, oh, well, things sucked in the past, so get used to it, Buttercup, maybe that'll make it better.
New ones, and I understand the AI questions for sure. We cover that a lot on this show. But Monty, you're not a card-carrying member of DSA, but you also support many of their policies. Why are you interested in what they have to offer, and what problems do you see that they're solving, or at least claiming that they're going to solve?
I think that democratic socialism operates as a guardrail to where capitalism fails. We've seen over the past year where we have watched tax law favor the wealthiest among us instead of the working and lower class, who it should fail. We have so many systems in our country that are not working, one of them being healthcare. We spend more per person than any other developed nation, and we have the worst health outcomes, including infant death and life expectancy and preventable disease. We can do better. I believe that they address the income equality while also saying, hey, we can do better by the numbers. We can actually make this better for everybody, not just the few. Because I see it as a guardrail to the greed and the inequality we're seeing everywhere by implementing programs that allow for us to get something for our taxes. I don't believe that American money should be going overseas when Americans need help here. Our tax dollars can help us here. We don't have a money problem. We have a priority problem, and a lot of people in the U.S. are suffering, and that money needs to stay here. Voters need to have more say in where their tax dollars go, and tax law should always favor the lower and the middle class.
Well,
Girl, you spittin'. You spittin'. Like, this entire segment was such a mistake for News Nation to do as a hit piece on DSA. But like, holy shit, they are getting blown out of the water here.
Would agree with you that I would like better stewardship of my tax dollars. Absolutely. But Nathan, we hear a lot about the billionaires. One of our reporters just detailed how billionaires are actually dumping money into the DSA when it's saying it's this grassroots movement. So are there like good billionaires as long as they're, donating to socialist causes? Whereas Elon...
That was not in the segment. So don't know what you're talking about on that one. You guys cut that out. I genuinely wish that had made it into the show if you have evidence of it.
Elon Musk, who's a trillionaire but created thousands of millionaires when SpaceX went public, is evil and one who should be...
Hey, I wonder if anyone should check in on how many of those thousands of employees that became millionaires. I wonder if someone should check in with how they're doing now that the SpaceX IPO price has dropped below initial offering.
Taxed to death.
Well, I mean, that's the report that you had really overstated.
Wait, is Tom Steyer paying dues? Oh, fuck. If Tom Steyer became a dues-paying member of DSA, that'd be so fucking funny.
It's the number of rich people who support these kinds of policies. It's actually very difficult to fundraise on the left. And in that report, you heard that the DSA's budget is actually $6 million. It's tiny. And what you didn't do in that report is you didn't compare DSA spending to corporate and other PAC spending. And if you start looking at that, you'll start to see that they're outspent like 50 to 1. If you look at the billionaires who donated to Cuomo, yeah, you find one eccentric rich person here and there. But Mamdani was massively outspent by the rich. They poured money. And around the country, you see this. We're seeing this in the Michigan.
God, Nathan's fucking nailing it. Love it.
Michigan Senate race right now, where Abdul El-Sayed is being outspent 50 to 1 by AIPAC. They're spending $50 million. So you got to do the comparison if you're going to have a real analysis of who's funded by the rich.
All right, Monty, there has been this debate too within DSA and promotion.
She just immediately moves away from it because holy shit, does she not want to deal with that?
Of groups that have been sanctioned by the U.S. government for terrorism, Hamas, for example. Is that a group that you support, or is that an outlier in terms of what DSA is pushing?
There is absolutely no promotion of Hamas. There is a defense of the Palestinian people to be able to live and survive. Because what you cannot have is a war with a region that does not have a standing army. When you are attacking hospitals and schools and you are intentionally targeting civilians, you're not defending yourself. You're also not targeting a terrorist group. You're targeting civilians. I'm talking about the nation state of Israel doing that. There is no movement within the DSA to support Hamas, but it is to defend the civilians.
I love how she's like, are you talking about Hamas doing those things? And she's like, no, I'm talking about Israel. You know, the nation currently attacking hospitals on like a daily basis.
Remind me what $1 million times what $1 million is. $1 trillion, right?
Also, here, if we Google here Gaza hospital and look at just recent news stories. Oh, Israeli strikes on Gaza City kill at least 9 Palestinians, including 3 children, hospital officials say. Oh, 20 hours ago, at least 1 killed in an Israeli drone strike in Gaza, hospital sources say. Nowhere is safe, 1 day ago. Israel kills Gaza families and bombs hospital despite ceasefire. Damn, that's crazy how that just keeps happening.
In Palestine to defend their right to live and live freely and to prevent settlement and abuse in the West Bank. It's a legal apartheid and a genocide that's going on, and that's not just my opinion. That also includes the International Criminal Court.
I think we can have you back to debate
that does not have a standing army.
Those facts. I think a lot of those are opinions, but we are happy to have you.
They're the consensus
Nathan
of
and
human
Monty,
rights groups around the world.
Thank you
There
very
are
much for being
reasons that
here
there are people
today.
in Israel facing war
We'll
crime
be right
charges.
Back.
Not
you
my
guys.
opinion.
Thank you very much. We got to run. Good to see you both. Thank you very much. More Katie Pavlich tonight after this.
For the love of God, stop talking. For the love of God, stop talking. Holy shit. That was great. This was one of the best segments on why people should be democratic socialists that I've ever seen. Like, these were the best arguments they could come up with against DSA, and it failed spectacularly. This was wonderful. This was incredible. I'm feeling like so amped and so jazzed by that entire like back and forth. That was wonderful.
We never get to celebrate when millionaires make decisions that allow normal people to gain $1.
Yeah, we never do. It's very two-faced of us. We should all be celebrating whenever a millionaire makes any decision that allows us to do anything. The same way we should be celebrating the decisions that thousandaires make that allow us to make pennies. It's truly beneficent of them to allow us to have pennies. Yeah, well, we can still get them. Damn, amazing how fast she ended that segment. Yeah, it's crazy how fast mainstream media folds when suddenly people start pointing out that Israel's doing a genocide. Anyway, that was incredible. I very much enjoyed that. Nathan J. Robinson there at the end, excellent performance. Monty there at the end, excellent performance. That DSA co-chair was wonderful in the face of quite a bit of hostility. That was great. And you know what? This convinced me to join DSA twice as hard. I'm going to join DSA all over again. I'm gonna have 6 cards for DSA in the near future. All 6. I'm gonna catch them all. I'm gonna up it to 151. Gotta catch them all. Gotta have all the DSA cards. Now there's an idea. DSA should look into making a trading card game based on different socialist figures. You know, you could have holographic cards. You could have different praxis points that you develop. I don't know. Like, I'm just spitballing here. This is a great idea for DSA to fundraise a little bit. I don't know. I just think that this is a good idea. Look, if Christianity can have a knockoff of Magic the Gathering, you know, why not DSA? Right? Anyway, all that being said, folks, if you enjoyed any of that, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the, scaffolding of a DSA trading card game. The elusive
What's
dark
your view
mitten
on how the UK could unfu or fix itself?
Oh God, Becky Dog, how could the UK unfuck itself? I mean, probably go with the Greens. Like, right now, like, I look at the UK and the only sane party I see right now are the Greens and Zach Polanski. Like, that seems to be the only vehicle that's actually functional for working class people there. Yeah, stopping the transphobia would also help.
Want to trade for your Danny DeVito?
You get it, Sake. You get it. I play Jane Fonda in attack position. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, leave a comment, and folks, also join your local Dems, join your local DSA, especially after that segment. You gotta join your DSA. Like, it's just the same thing to do at this point. And get involved today. If you don't know where to start, join our Discord, reach out to GamerG for help joining your local Dems, right, help joining your local DSA. Reach out to Dragonfly for help joining your local Dems. There we go. It is really easy. We'll help you get to your first meetings. We'll give you the tips. We'll give you the tricks. We'll help you organize together with the folks in the Discord who have made the leap as well. And folks, last but not least, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed for the ground up for trans femmes. Tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks, trans men. It is comfy, sexy, non-tucking lingerie. And we just got a full restock, 2 new sizes and a new color in stock. So do go check that out. ImogeneOlivia.com. Link down in the doobly-doo. And let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat.